If you haven't seen my other videos about the types of domestic violence cases, there are three major categories: a restraining order, how to handle it, the consequences of a restraining order, etc., etc. I advise you to take a look so that you have a better context for this video. Today, I'm going to talk about the difference between a domestic violence crime and a restraining order case. Right. The first difference is that if you have a case for domestic violence, whether it is harassment, assault, um, battery, stalking, threats, etc., that is a crime under the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act in New Jersey, which was passed in 1991. Right, so the legal standard for that is different from if you have a restraining order case. The standard for a crime is the famous reasonable doubt standard. Almost everybody knows this. If you've ever seen a crime movie or any kind of law series on TV, you know that reasonable doubt is the most popular standard that everybody knows. Jay-Z had an entire album, I think, about that called Reasonable Doubt. So the prosecution has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, right? There has been no doubt. But in a restraining order case, right, first of all, it's not even a prosecutor putting the case. I talked about that in one of my other videos. A restraining order case is actually a civil process, right? It's one citizen saying to the court to give them a restraining order against another citizen. So we say with a restraining order case, the legal standard that you have to meet is not reasonable doubt. The legal standard is called preponderance of the evidence, which means that majority of the evidence has to be in favor of the person seeking the restraining order. It's a much lower standard than the reasonable doubt standard because that's a criminal case. Someone's freedom is at stake. But in this case, it's a preponderance of evidence because the consequences are not as high. The bar is much lower. We like to call the preponderance of evidence 50% plus one. So 50%, a little bit over 50% gives the person what they need. And the judge has to sit there and listen to all the evidence. Look at the evidence, the testimony, the examination, the cross-examination, whether it's text message evidence, videos, images, etc., and consider all of the testimony, all of the evidence, and then decide whether the plaintiff met the preponderance of the evidence. Like to say, 50% plus one. In the case where that standard is met, the alleged defendant the defendant then has a restraining order entered against them in their name. Even though the legal standard for a restraining order is lower than a crime, I do not advise to handle these cases lightly. I've seen many cases where people just say to themselves, "Oh, I'll just go to court and tell the judge my side of the story." Good luck. That's exactly how you end up with a restraining order against you. I advise you to go watch my other video where I talk about the consequences of a restraining order. Right? Anything from losing, job opportunities to licenses for work. You can't have any weapons. It's a lot of things, and it's also nationwide. It follows you everywhere. So if you are facing a restraining order case, give us a call at Omojola Law. Just enter Omojola, Omojola Law into your favorite search engine, and it'll pull up our website, our locations, contact information, etc. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. This is Attorney Ade Omojola, and I'm looking forward to solving your legal problem. Hello, this is Attorney Ade Omojola from Omojola Law, right here in Newark, New Jersey. I've been practicing law for over 14 years. I cover the areas of litigation, immigration, domestic violence / family law, and DUIs, driving under the influence. Please search Omojola Law, that's Omojola, into any of your favorite search engines, and it'll pull up our website, our location, and our contact information. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. Again, this is Attorney Ade Omojola from Omojola Law, located right here in Newark, New Jersey, and I'm looking forward to solving your legal problem.